Здравствуйте, спасибо.
So, afternoon, good morning. Thank you very much that you have chosen us. This session, Augmented City, Virtual Reality. My name is Andrei Manirko, and I will be moderator of our session. I want to introduce BC Birman, is creative director and founder of Heavy Projects. Vladimir Определенов, Deputy Director for IT, the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts, and Alexander Lavrov, CEO, Next Space. So every speaker will have the floor, and then we'll have questions and answers. So we'll start with Bessy.
Say a few words about what you do.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you to the Moscow Urban Forum for having us here. I'm going to keep this super brief. I was planning for a little bit longer of a talk, but so I have about 6 minutes. So I founded a company called Heavy Projects. We do public space, augmented reality. We sort of invented this space of large public space murals that are activated in augmented reality, and we have a sort of a civic engagement ethos behind our work. I'm going to talk very briefly about the landscape and talk about the evolution of some of the hardware, which is lagging behind the software in a lot of ways, which is presenting a problem for developers in this space. Steve Mann is one of the pioneers in early stage computer vision. He's now the CTO of a company called Meta out of San Francisco, and they were sort of pioneering front-facing depth sensing cameras. You may have heard of Magic Leap. There's been a lot of promise and hype surrounding Magic Leap. There's been a lot of funding. We'll see what they come up with later this year. They're using light field technology, and I'm hoping they don't fall in some of the traps that Google Glass did with over-promising and under-delivering. Bose is shrinking the form factor in terms of the glasses, but they're using sound. So the computer vision is sensing the urban environment, and then not through an image overlay, but through sound, it's describing what you're seeing as a form of acoustic augmented reality. More in the future, prototype contact lenses, and ultimately even closer to interiority brain implants. Okay. The AR cloud is something that's been much talked about in the industry over the past year or so. And this is sort of the holy grail of where augmented reality is going, and it particularly pertains to city spaces. Think about the internet browser, but a visual overlay over your environment. The Universal Visual Browser, the UVB, is what you would be surfing, in a sense. And what all needs to come together is the software in terms of computer vision, whether it be ARKit, AR Core, or what PTC Euphoria is doing on the software side. So image recognition, visual feature tracking, and also point cloud creation for surfaces. The key to this coming together is not just the hardware and the software, but what lives behind it in the cloud to push content in real time that's dynamic, that's contextual, that makes sense to the space that you're in and your preferences. One downside to this, or one potential hurdle, is this becomes a filter bubble, an echo chamber of just digital content that you want to see. I serve on an IEEE committee with regard to algorithmic bias, and one of the things we're concerned about is how do we create a serendipity experience of content that enters into your visual environment that isn't pre-programmed, that might confront you with ideas that you don't already agree with. So just a few examples of AR in civic engagement. This is an interesting example that was this year in New York City, commensurate with the Grammy Awards, where No Computer put computer vision cameras on top of Uber cars that sense the urban environment, looking for buildings, looking for stop signs, trash cans, people. Once it recognized those things, it associated a sound with what it was seeing, and then that sound, as you can see, played out on the interior window of the Uber car. So sort of a city as symphony, as it were. There's lots of examples of architectural visual overlays that allow for previs, using physics, using real-time light simulations, so to how to understand lighting exposures, shadows, time of day, so forth. One nice thing about this one is that you can record the experience, and then this becomes sort of a collaborative tool for architects. I'm going to skip that one. This is a company also out of Los Angeles that provides collaborative tool set for mostly industry and tech-specific collaboration between someone who's remotely sitting on a computer and someone who's sort of specifically looking at how to fix something, be it a tech stack or an engine, so they can collaborate in real time. I'm going to jump to this one. This one is a little bit more future-facing and sort of an example of how a city could reduce its hardware costs, its infrastructure costs, and use augmented reality to replace common city surfaces, so like traffic patterns or crossing the street. Something as simple as removing stop signs and allowing in AR the crosswalks to glow green, glow orange, based on traffic patterns. This is a larger point I'd like to make in terms of using existing infrastructure to trigger AR experiences to reduce costs, all right? To help cities absorb costs of infrastructure where they can replace things in AR. A little bit about our work. I'm going to skip these. There we go. Okay. Some of our early work involves art in public spaces, but specifically street art and commercial signage. So our first project was in Times Square, replacing all the advertising with curated street art from artists whose work was traditionally associated with public space messaging. Also in New York, we call it this in situ archiving. This particular mural wall in New York is painted about once every 9 months. So what we did was sort of resurrected all the murals that had lived there since 1982 and the original Keith Haring piece on the Bowery Wall. So there's this sort of like resurrecting things that used to live in the city but no longer live there is a very common use case for AR in public spaces. This is in Austin for South by Southwest. This is one of our first examples of activating city walls. And we actually allowed people to vote on civic initiatives in the way that they interacted with the mural. So some of our early experiments are how can we activate specific places in cities that people care about. They move and live and walk in those spaces and allow them to engage through pieces of art and specifically through the mobile device AR. I'm going to skip that one and go to this. This is in San Francisco. And this was sort of keenly interested in how we can combine or transition from digital to physical. The centerpiece there is that design is the back of a chair that you see in AR. And then users who touched that chair were emailed a 3D printing file that then they could actually 3D print that chair. So moving the digital back into the physical world is something that sort of intrigued us. And then finally, our project here in Moscow, using data from the Moscow Civic Data Open Portal, and specifically all of the lat-long coordinates for all the theaters, museums, and exhibition halls in the city. We put these together sort of with a lattice and then wrap that lattice around a 3D mesh of a skull. We're sort of pushing into this idea of our online presence forming a version of ourselves, a picture of ourselves through our data inputs that isn't necessarily accurate. This has sort of come to the fore in terms of data privacy, what's going on with Facebook, and the like. So it's something that has intrigued us, and we're sort of working with how do we visualize data from civic open city data portals. And I'm going to actually, I think my 6 minutes is up. It's a little hard to see, but if you've got any questions, feel free to contact us. I'm going to post this entire slide deck, which I skipped over a few slides, onto SlideShare. If you'd like a link to it, just email dev@heavy.io, dev@heavy.io, and there's 3 of us here today if you have any other questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's my time, and happy to take questions afterward.
Thank you. Сейчас я хотел бы передать слово Александру.
Now I would like to give floor to Alexander Lavrov. Colleagues, please go forward. We have a lot of space here, so you can take your seats right here in the front rows.
Это Владимира.
Вы пока могли бы представиться еще раз, чем вы занимаетесь?
Меня зовут Александр.
My name is Alexander Lavrov. I'm the CEO of the following company. We made over 100 projects over the last 10 years. The company name is Nextpace. We started off with London, Skolkovo, VDNK, a planning system for St. Pete, so we made a great deal of high-tech stuff. So we always present some novelties at the Moscow Urban Forum. Right now, my colleagues are going to launch the presentation. We're in for a lot of interesting information. We might have a technical issue. Can we please play the presentation? Can we put it on? Is everything all right? As the presentation is starting up, we might want to cover the first part. The matter is that I have a video to play, but I can visualize the contents of this video. I suggest that Vladimir takes over the floor. Probably you might want to comment on the previous speaker, on the previous talk. What changes will we see in your work in the future? Everything listed comes down to existing technology. They are now on a pre-market stage, on a prototype stage, but this is already something that already works, that's out there. We can expect the following. How to put it? This Magic Clip, this is a startup that received over $2 billion of investment with all players. It's either the market is going to soar or investors will lose any trust in the market. I have one more question to ask you prior to the session. This is a session on the virtual reality, on the augmented reality. And as mentioned before, we have the so-called mixed reality, when physical things are coming closer and closer to digital ones. What do you say about that? That interfaces sometimes are mixed, intertwined. These terms were made by the marketing specialists. There is a table made in the 70s. Virtual reality, reality, and augmented reality. And mixed reality is a specific case. And they labeled technologies capable of something more than what augmented reality can do is now being referred to as mixed reality. A technology able to capture pictures, recognize pictures, now called virtual reality. And everything that goes beyond this augmented reality is now referred to as mixed reality, just to distinguish them. So we have no presentation available. Let's start off with your presentation, then I can pass it on a pen drive, on a USB drive if we are technically able to. Please pass the clicker to Alexander. Alexander, can you please pass the clicker? I'm terribly sorry for the technical difficulty. We have an IT-related forum, and everything fails, as usual. My name is Vladimir Opredelenov. I'm Deputy Director for IT with the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts, and I'm also in charge of a department at the one of Moscow-based universities. Yes, this is what the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts looks like. Hopefully you have visited it recently. Next slide, please. This is a list of our holdings. We have over 670,000 items in our holdings. We have a unique library. We have a multitude of archive materials, over 800,000 of items considered to be archive materials. It's not even possible to list them all in a single slide. Next slide, please, now. Great. This is an estimate of visitors for last year, 2017. Over 4 million visitors use our facilities. On the website, we have over 1 million interested individuals. Those of you who have visited the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts believe that it has only one building. Actually, there are 4 large quarters, 27 buildings around Moscow. There is a huge reconstruction project in the pipeline. We expect to build up to 50,000 public square meters, utilities, communications. In 2021, we will have 4 new buildings commissioned, and by 2026, we will complete the overhaul reconstruction of the main building. This is the largest project so far in terms of creating a museum-centered project in the heart of the city. In this field, we are facilitated by 3D modeling design tools partially made by Alexander. Let's scroll on and let's watch the video. Hopefully it has the audio feed available as well. Next. Colleagues, please help us out. Great, now it goes. And can we play the audio? No, we cannot. Right. Starting from 2009, we have started digitalizing the holdings, the collection, with the help of the Visera company. Now it is called Next Space. Back then, we were not willing to build a 3D museum because the quality back then was not good enough. But this is a perfect solution to approve reconstruction models. Now we have built a model and we managed to get the changes approved by the authorities thanks to this high-quality visualization. At present, we're planning to have a joint curatorship project. You can actually use the database to virtually place pictures on the walls. I wanted this to become an educational, cloud-based solution helping specialists in arts and universities cover some of our holdings. Next one. This really works in a VR mode. You wear a helmet. Hopefully you've been up to speed and you have followed this virtual Pushkin Museum. Let's ask some questions. Has someone seen that? Has someone visited our facilities? Right. In this case, colleagues, please come and visit us. We have a lot in store for you. That's quite an interesting environment. It has 3D models and it also has recent reconstruction items. This is the video. Stop it here. Based on a photograph, we decided to make a reconstruction of events that took place 100 years ago. It includes the real-life works currently held by the museum, and we now have a reconstruction of this ancient building. We don't know what the window frames look like and the curtains, so they're not present in this 3D, but the interiors are pretty authentic. As of today, we believe it's crucial to develop various digital personal assistants. That's why via the IZI.travel platform we have made this project available in multiple languages, and the future of these projects will be closely connected to such a platform. This is what our halls, exhibition halls, look like. Next video, please. I would like to showcase opportunities provided by present-day virtual reality technologies once they appear in our halls. This is what we make possible. Thanks to digital restoration, we can add real-life objects, and it's incredible. A 3D virtual space now enables you to get a clear picture. As you are pretty aware of, it's very difficult to get a proper impression of an archaeological site. In this case, thanks to our colleagues, we were able to recreate the city of Pantikapey. This is the present site of Kerch. It is broken down into 3 historical periods, and any visitor today can take a peek at these 3 stages. We're going to deploy a museum for visitors to get acquainted with our collection. This is the 3D restoration. Thanks to laser-based scanning technologies, we perform a thorough analysis of the components. And we're currently considering 3D printing as a further option. We have multiple chips and bits and pieces, and thanks to 3D technology, we can recreate such items as previously shown in the picture. It's also part of the collection. Marvelous pictures, but we are running out of time. We do realize that the information space for museums includes both internal systems as well as working for specific exhibitions. This can be the internet, the VR, and all other components. Ultimately, put together, they can become a network of valid information based on authentic sources. And based on that, we can develop standards. This is a typical situation. Actually, the adults look exactly the same. They just walk faster. Regarding these mobile and wearable devices, we want to be able to transfer this information onto those personal devices. Let's watch another video. This is a special purpose augmented reality application made available for all Russian museums with the support of the Ministry of Culture of Russia. Alexander developed the pilot project. It evolved into a large-scale project that has become a free platform for all museums of Russia. And at present, we are relying on it quite extensively. This is special, free to get application. You can download and discover museums like never before. We are running out of time, so next slide, please. So this helps you to rely on augmented reality and gives you additional knowledge. Now you have an infrared visual. There would be hardly a way to make this available without the use of such a technology. The exhibition is not limited to the visual spectrum. You can also look into the X-ray and infrared spectra. You can also take a peek at the artistic restoration or reconstruction. Next one. Quite unexpectedly, the museum reaches out into the city. It's a joint stand at Metropolis, a mall. We used augmented reality technologies to recreate parts of the museum. So a single piece of the picture is well sufficient for the technology to show you a complete picture. We rely on the same architecture, we use the same audio feeds, and this is a tightly interconnected system. Next one, please. We also have tested the application with the Epson virtual reality goggles. The results have been published, and I'll tell you where later on. Next slide, next one. And quite an unexpected field of use. Museums will be able to reach out to public spaces such as libraries and other spaces. You can capture this catalog. This is using an iPad, and a book edited in a single language might work in multiple other languages. We can see a concealed image. This was captured 1 week ago. We see points of interest and some concealed images. One more point now. It's also an audio excursion system, guided tour audio system. It opens up extensive opportunities for promoting knowledge and translation into foreign languages. We ran an experiment. We relied on augmented reality only, without any printed descriptions. Let's skip that part. One slide back, please. Lovely. Based on the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts, we launched this scientific lab, an IT lab, to cover all the available technologies for a reasonable, for a sensible application in the museum sphere. Here is the web address, pushkinmuseum.art/IT-lab. Stay tuned for updates. Sorry for speaking too fast. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you so much. I believe, after having been exposed to a wave of information, we would like to give the floor to the next speaker. Or, alternatively, we can have a Q&A session right now or later after the end of our discussion. Alexander, I would like to pass the floor to you now. I'm going to have an intense talk today because Vladimir covered all the joint projects we have had together. That's why I decided to make this talk telling you about the future. I know I'm in control of the clicker. Probably the clicker is dead now. So you can say next for the tech personnel to change slides for you. Next one. And it all rhymes with your title, your name. Next space. Next one, please. Yes. We were supposed to fly away. I told you about the company. In this slide, you can see the whole diversity of fields of application of augmented reality. In layman's words, you can find multiple uses. And since it all happens within a city, here comes a digital plan, starting from the employee onboarding and services for the citizens, retail, culture, as mentioned by Vladimir. You can find some other fields of application, such as games and other fields of application. As for any technology, it has its advantages and disadvantages, its pros and cons. Here we go. What's going on? I believe the clicker is dead. Please hand over the clicker to me. When making this presentation, I remember this Western movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And if you add AR, you will clearly understand what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, we have no audio feed, but this is a pretty amusing video made, quite surprisingly, by a German-based bank. And it showcases the negative side of modern technology. Right now, we are having the same thing with mobile phones, just like the everyday situation you see in public means of transport every single day. A second slide movie was made by colleagues from Brazil. That's an example showcasing the useful and unuseful VR. So right now this person is in a public means of transport. This person has personal space, and there's nothing you can see with this interface. This is the dream of many. There appears a pop-art chat window, as mentioned before by the colleagues. You have some points of interest. You have these pop-up advertisements. You have his tasks in the top corner. You have the incoming, new messages, unread messages. Well, we're suffering from a heavy of information overload, but I hope there will be few such interfaces. This is what the traditional websites look like in the 90s. I believe it will be one of the first stages of such 3D interfaces. This is what we see on mobile phones. We can have navigation, and that's pretty clear. We can also see some information regarding people. That's like a social network all around you. And most importantly, advertisement. That's why all major companies are into augmented reality, because they expect to earn even much more money through augmented reality. Here we are in this city. We can see this transportation network. The traffic light tells us to clear the area because we have oncoming traffic. In theory, that might boost safety and security. Everyone is tagged, the people you know, the people you don't know. Retail is considered to be as one of the most promising areas for augmented reality. They have clearly understandable tasks. It will help them sell more, and retail is all about boxes, and there are very many successful cases. Amazon and other major companies are investing heavily in the creation of such virtual environments like malls and shops. You have both entertainment and information-related banners. They're all boosted with augmented reality. This is something we can do right now. So what we see now in the picture is feasible. But no one wants to carry around a tablet every time. Everyone wants to have a set of glasses or goggles like I have, so that this device is lightweight with augmented reality technologies built in. We can see a personal assistant everyone is dreaming of now, helping you to make the right choice when you go grocery shopping and other kinds of shopping. So I believe you might run into some trouble, and now we're going to disconnect the augmented reality and we'll see the contrast, the AR and the reality. Now we have the second line. We still have 30 seconds to watch, and I'm wrapping up now. So we can evaluate whether the information was useful or not, and here it goes down. This is the ugly world without AR available. And so now it turns back on and the life carries on. I wanted to provide some food for thought, for further discussion. We covered both the advantages and disadvantages. For further information, please visit this YouTube channel, including our lectures. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
I would like to ask several questions to our speakers and then to give the floor to our audience for the questions. This very video clip, Matsu, so if I'm not mistaken, it's about like 5-6 years old, and when it appeared to the stage, it was like having this wow effect. It was pretty unexpected, and we didn't have a lot of examples with AR, VR, glasses, and etc. But right now I'm looking at all these things, like 5 years passed, and I have this feeling that you see my perception, non-professional perception, it has been changed a lot. So I would like to ask this question, BC, what has changed after this video appeared? It was quite shocking, but it's still this traditional, like foundational, shocking project. Besides this series like Black Mirror and more dark fiction speculations.
One in, I think, a series of videos, and that's a dystopian view of a very cluttered digital environment that no one wants to wade through. I think there's several stakeholders that are sort of staking out the digital space, in a sense that you've got commercial voices, you've got private voices, you've got activist voices. One of the reasons that we sort of got into this game was we saw AR as a way for artists and citizens who couldn't afford commercial messaging in public spaces, which is very expensive in cities like Los Angeles, I'm sure here in Moscow, to put their messages out into the public sphere and sort of circumvent traditional channels of messaging. So the Metsuda piece was sort of a dystopian view of this cluttered digital environment that we hope doesn't appear as a part of the AR cloud that when I described the universal visual browser.
But how would it look today? Как бы это видео выглядело сегодня?
How would this video would look today? What has changed?
It's a good question, and it's one that's yet to be solved, right? So I think the closest analog might be something like if you've ever used Pandora for music, where you select a certain amount of channels based on your preferences, but then the algorithm kind of takes over from there based on your reaction to the music that you're hearing. One way that this could maybe be sifted through or filtered appropriately is an algorithm that functions similar to the digital genome project that lives behind Pandora. So in a sense, it would be an image genome project. You select a certain amount of visual channels. Those channels sort of start to infiltrate your digital environment. Based on how you react to those images, then it starts to change and adjust accordingly.
So it's filtering and channeling instead of cluttering. То есть это получается такая идея про то, что появятся фильтры и каналы.
When filters and channels would appear, and then it will become such a great problem instead of those ideas which we had 5 years ago when everything would become just noisy.
Also, this notion of opting in and opting out. What you can't do, in a sense, in physical public space is opt out of the messages that you're confronted with. That's an option that you would have in the virtual space, is sort of the opt in and opt out of the messages that would appear in your digital landscape.
Теперь я хотел бы задать вопрос Владимиру и открыть дискуссию.
Right now, I would like to ask the question to Vladimir, and can you describe some kind of a typology, like the typing of virtual reality? Your direction is how to transfer information. There is a lot of information which should be transferred, but this information is abiding not in conventional interfaces. So there is some traditional knowledge. And for example, when you look at your notebook, when something is printed, and on the other hand, there is another kind of transferring information. So what kind of technologies in terms of giving information, then digital marketing and etc. As of now, so many people think that all the knowledge of the world is contained in internet. It's not the truth. If we talk about civilization, what was accumulated throughout the whole history, it is only 2% which is contained in internet. So that's why for us as archives for keeping this historical cultural knowledge, for us it's important to create those standards and databases with the possibility of integration in those services which are related with artificial intellect or or assistant because we're lagging behind retail chains. So that's why the distance between those stages of transfer information, it's getting bigger and bigger, and internet becomes more like the space of the garbage more and more. And the more technologies are developed, especially this video clip which we saw, so this volume of this VR AR will grow. So that's why our task is to work with open data, with gateways, and also talking about agreement with retail chain to turn this information not just in selling features, but so that it would be useful for users for getting education. So for you as to professionals working with VR and AR, so you are more interested in professional collaboration with information. Yeah, you see, it's not the task of the institutions of culture to deal with innovative development of some augmented additional technologies, but the very concept that we're a resource base for the knowledge database. So that's why we deal with that. So that's why we would like to integrate scientific field and retail field so that we wouldn't become like black bureau or be out of agenda of all current streams. That's why for those people who deal with cultural projects and urbanistics, it's high time to deal with this trend, and Alexander showed it pretty nicely that everything's ready. We have to get agreements and language of transference of information. So that's why we're working on this language of new communication. Museums, they have this term like digital communication, and we're pondering on that. So I guess that we touch on those topics which are really interesting for the audience. And my name is Pasha Baker. I'm an architect. I have the question related to the change of the city. So if we take this analog of new cars, so it was just usual carriage, but the horses were removed, and then like appearance outlook of this carriage was transformed, and then our cars, they're not like those old carriages. So the same way transformation with AR happens now. We can see those billboards, but a bit changed with some moving pictures. We can see those funny videos when we come to a supermarket with our card. And then on the exit, we can see some information in this card. So it's some kind of a middle stage phase. So what kind of demands for the future will we have? And what kind of changes in the city will be with the appearing of new reality? So can you start, BC?
So if I understand the question, maybe we should think about these technologies both as they exist now in silos. So you've got AR, VR, and AI. I think that's an artificial way to think about them. I think ultimately they'll converge, and you won't be siloing these out. AI will live as the data backbone specifically really behind AR. So once those technologies sort of sit together better, right? And then the software side comes along with it. The hardware form factor shrinks, as my other panelists mentioned, to where people might actually wear these things outside of the house, right, and engage in the city spaces. So at that point, the city becomes a real canvas. That canvas can then be painted with a variety of not just artwork, but how to, like a read-write reaction to the city. You can touch walls. Those walls will sort of react to you. But you don't need to build any infrastructure to do that.
Would you compare it to if you want to see new cars, you need better highways and roads, right?
Exactly. So but in a sense, the highways and roads are already there. The canvas is already there. The city exists already to be the platform of all of this digital interactivity. So we don't need to invent necessarily new cities, right? The architecture is already there. You can use architecture as it exists now to trigger augmented reality experiences. You don't need to necessarily design new architecture to do that. I think that's one of the benefits of this, is that the hardware in terms of the city exists. Now it's the software and the wearables need to catch up.
Александр, может быть, у вас есть... Yeah, go ahead.
But now you use the city as a background for your reality, virtual reality. But I asking about impact of reality, how it will change the city, how it will change the streets.
Well, okay, so
Just imaginary.
yeah, so well, I gave the example of sort of this, you can remove all sort of traffic signage, right? And just rely on a digital overlay to push people in certain directions or prevent them from moving in certain directions. Let me give you another example. One thing we haven't talked about is biometric data, right? Fitbits, all sorts of wearables are collecting biometric data all the time. There's a way to potentially, with IoT and AI as the data structuring backbone, to then have cities react to your biometric data. One crude example is you're walking through the market area of the city. The signage dims and glows based on the biometric data, right, that you're providing it. So if you have a cholesterol problem, right, certain signs will dim in AR. Right? You don't have to create a new structural network for that. It exists already. The overlay will react to you and your biometric data within the platform of the city.
Я передам слово Александру, у нас уже заканчивается...
Вы знаете,
Give a floor to Alexander. You know what? I guess that, yeah, probably it won't be changed a lot in the city. But as for VR, it's only like tracking and rendering. So, but the very fact of consumption will be changed. The city will be changed only after that. When we see some additional information about everything, and your private space is changing as well. When we watch those movies, future fiction movies, on one hand we can see some utopia part in that. On the other hand, a lot of more conveniences which will change our life for the better. To be honest, it's not really clear how the city would be changed, but probably dynamic part of the city will be changed, not the static one. I guess that the development of the city environment is the development with the engagement of increasing level of the comfort for inhabitants. Well, the first example is biometrics. Of course, I would like to remove all those borders around us and for people to understand whether they would enter this VR or AR. So people would not need some hard copy tickets, and the person could go into some exhibition or some museum without any tickets. And the most important thing is removal of linguistic barrier. When you come to some foreign country, it's very difficult to navigate there. So that's why if we remove linguistic barrier for movement in the cities, when also maximum barriers are related to security, I guess it will change the overall picture. The less barriers, the less tourniquets we have, and to give a maximal amount of signals in digital world, so then our environment, our media will be the most comfortable.
Just one last point.
Последний.
I'm a professor at a small design school in Southern California and also a fellow at the USC Innovation Lab, and working with the city of Los Angeles and the IEEE, creating a test bed within the city of Los Angeles to network it, to better understand with IoT, with AR, with VR, with an AI backbone as a test bed to better understand and answer those questions, right? So let's say a real working, living city block. how could you network that city block to then sort of understand how the city might then react to the people that are passing through it. So it's really in the nation stages of trying to understand the heart of your question was, how is the city going to react to the technologies that are superimposed on top of it? And how is it going to respond to it? Right? So we're still sort of vetting that question.
Я хотел бы поблагодарить всех слушателей и гостей.
I would like to give thanks to all the guests and speakers. Unfortunately, we have a bit restricted timeline. It doesn't mean that we can't communicate and have some discussion after this session. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.